On January 16, 2026, in the middle of bright daylight, the bottleneck of the Strait of Hormuz trembles, the narrowest point of the world's oceans, only 21 nautical miles wide, a strategic eye of a needle through which 20% of the global oil flows daily. At 2:52 p.m., under perfect visibility, the USS Mason, a state-of-the-art guided missile destroyer of the U.S. Navy, escorts an American tanker through Iranian-controlled waters. A routine operation to ensure freedom of navigation, but Tehran has other plans. Suddenly, 6 Iranian coastal batteries activate with anti-ship missiles, a clear signal of the hatred that has simmered for decades between the mullahs in Tehran and the West. 12 fast attack boats launch from Bandar Abbas and 3 missile corvettes set in motion to intercept the U.S. destroyer. Everything is visible under the radiant afternoon sun, an act of pure provocation. The Kremlin. Wait. No, Tehran sends a message. This tanker does not get through. This destroyer does not survive. The Iranian hardliners, driven by fanatical anti-Americanism that is sprayed like poison in their speeches, believe they have set the perfect trap. A lone U.S. destroyer in the bottleneck, surrounded by missile batteries and attack boats, no way to escape. Their plan: overwhelm the destroyer with simultaneous attacks, sink it in Iranian waters, take survivors prisoner, hijack the tanker, and humiliate America before the world. A cruel revenge fantasy intended to translate the hatred for the great Satan, as they call the USA, into bloody deeds. But Iran's arrogance, this blind rage fed by decades of sanctions and isolation, leads to 4 catastrophic mistakes that will plunge their navy into a fiasco. First, the USS Mason is by no means alone. 3 U.S. submarines lurk invisibly in the depths, ready to strike. Second, the carrier strike group centered around the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower is waiting just 60 nautical miles away with 48 Fa-18 Super Hornets that can launch like birds of prey. Third, every Iranian missile battery is already being monitored by B-1B bombers at an altitude of 40,000 feet, invisible to the enemy. Fourth, the seemingly harmless tanker Pacific Endeavor conceals 12 elite Marines in hiding, equipped for reconnaissance and sabotage missions. Here at Air Superiority, your radio for military dramas, we reveal the full story: how Iran's surprise attack, driven by pure hatred and the desire to break America, culminates in the most devastating U.S. counterstrike in the Persian Gulf since 1988. Tehran thought they would sink a destroyer. Instead, they unleash a wave of destruction that lays their fleet in ruins. What happens in the following 47 minutes becomes the deadliest and best documented operation against Iranian forces in modern times. A saga of arrogance and humiliation that shocks the world and drives the hatred between the nations to a new level of enmity. Imagine, dear listeners, the Strait of Hormuz, the most strategic body of water on Earth, where 30 million barrels of oil pass daily. Iran controls the northern coast, has claimed sovereignty for decades, and constantly threatens closure, an act that would strangle the world economy. For a long time, these were empty threats, but 3 weeks ago in January 2026, Tehran stationed 6 advanced missile batteries along the coast, Chinese C-802 missiles with a range of 120 kilometers capable of sinking destroyers. Added to this are increased patrols, fast attack boats, missile corvettes, aggressive maneuvers against U.S. ships. A clear sign of the hatred blazing in Tehran's rhetoric, anti-Western propaganda that turns their soldiers into fanatics. The U.S. response proceed undeterred with freedom operations. Escort tankers ignore Iran's threats, show Tehran these waters remain international. On the morning of January 16, 2026, the USS Mason, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, receives the order: guide the Pacific Endeavor through the strait, secure it, and defend against aggression. Captain Sarah Mitchell, the commander, knows the risk. In an emotional address to the crew, "We enter the strait at 11 a.m. Iranian activity is high. Daylight means perfect visibility. They see everything. Expect harassment, maybe worse. All weapon systems to maximum. This is a combat zone. Stay alert." What she doesn't say, intelligence reports indicate an imminent attack. Intercepted communications reveal plans to attack U.S. ships, an act of naked hatred risking thousands of lives. At 11:30 a.m., the Mason enters the strait, the tanker following 1 kilometer behind. Both ships glisten in the midday sun, visible to Iranian observers. At 12:15 p.m., Iranian coastal radars begin active scanning, painting the Mason with target radars calculating firing solutions, a red flag of aggression. At 1:47 p.m., 12 Iranian speedboats launch from Bandar Abbas Revolutionary Guard armed with anti-ship missiles racing in under satellite surveillance. At 2:20 p.m., 3 missile corvettes follow large ships with heavy weapons visible to U.S. reconnaissance aircraft. The tension escalates, the hatred of Iran, nourished by decades of conflict, breaks through. At 2:35 p.m., Captain Mitchell receives an urgent message from U.S. Central Command. Iranian attack imminent. 6 batteries active, 12 boats incoming, 3 corvettes on intercept course. Engagement authority granted. Carrier strike group launching. Hold your position. Defend the tanker. Mitchell orders, all hands to battle stations, no drill. Iranians approaching, visible on radar and visually. Weapons free under my command. The USS Mason, one of the Navy's most advanced ships, is equipped with the Aegis Combat System SM-2 air defense missiles, Tomahawk cruise missiles, a 127mm deck gun, and Phalanx close-in weapon systems. But against 6 batteries, 12 boats, and 3 corvettes, an overwhelming force that translates Iran's hatred into deadly reality. At 2:52 p.m., the Iranian ambush begins. 6 coastal batteries fire 8 C-802 supersonic drones racing across the sea, steam trails visible in the afternoon light directly toward the Mason. Simultaneously, the 12 boats open fire, 24 smaller anti-ship missiles launch plumes visible for miles. The 3 corvettes fire 6 heavy missiles, a total of 38 missiles at a single ship, the largest anti-ship barrage against a U.S. ship since World War II. An act of brutal enmity that brings the world to the brink of war. Captain Mitchell roars, engage all defenses, launch countermeasures, return fire authorized. The Mason's Aegis system activates lightning-fast tracking the 38 incoming projectiles, calculating interceptions, and firing SM-2 interceptor missiles. Boom, 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 white trails in the blue sky. First Iranian missile destroyed, explosion visible. Second, third, fourth, but too many too fast. Phalanx C-rams kick in 20mm Gatling guns, 4,500 rounds per minute, the last line of defense. Missiles explode nearby, flashes in the daylight, shrapnel raining down. At 2:54 p.m., an Iranian missile breaks through the defenses, striking forward above the waterline, explosion fire. Black smoke rises. Casualties. A second one hits aft, more damage, more dead. The Mason is burning, is wounded, but fights on. The damage is visible from the Iranian coast, a moment of triumph for Tehran's hardliners who cheer in their bunkers driven by anti-American fanaticism. Mitchell orders damage report, return fire on batteries, Tomahawks launch. 8 Tomahawk cruise missiles lift off from vertical launchers, bright flames in the daylight programmed for the Iranian batteries. At 2:57 p.m., the 12 boats approach within 5 kilometers. Machine guns rattle, more missiles launch, everything visible in perfect clarity. The Mason's 127mm gun swivels, boom boom, first boat shredded, explosion and debris visible. Second explodes, third burns, but 9 remain, continuing to attack. The corvettes advance. At 2:58 p.m., Mitchell radios Central Command. Mason hit 2 impacts, fighting fires. Smoke visible for miles. Multiple ships and land missiles. Need support now. The answer: air support incoming, 60 seconds. Hold on. At 2:59 p.m., 8F/A-18. Super Hornets thunder over the strait at 600 knots, visible against the blue sky. Pilots see the battle, Mason burning, a smoke column 30 miles long. Boats swarming, missiles flying. Rhino flight's weapons-free priority corvettes and boats keep them away from the Mason data. 16 AGM-84. Harpoon anti-ship missiles launch fire-and-forget radar seekers' active trails in the afternoon light. The corvettes detect them maneuver too late. Boom boom simultaneous hits, massive explosions, fireballs bright in the day. Ships break apart, sinking in minutes. US air superiority turns the tide in seconds. Iran's hatred is punished with precision. The Hornets turn to the boats, 20mm cannon fire, precise strafing runs tracers visible in the sunshine. Boats explode, burn, sink, smoke, and flames visible from the coast. 9 becomes 6, 6 becomes 3, 3 becomes 0. At 3:02 p.m., the Tomahawks impact 8 missiles, destroy 6 batteries, GPS, guided 1,000-pound warheads, synchronous detonations visible via satellite. Command's obliterated radars shattered. But America is not finished. At 3:04 p.m., 2 B-1B Lancer bombers circling at 40,000 feet receive target data 48 JDAMS GPS guided bombs. Targets every Iranian naval facility within 100 kilometers, command's ammunition depots, barracks, radar installations, towers. Bomb bay doors open 24 JDAMS per bomber fall through the clear sky. At 3:06 p.m., Revolutionary Guard facilities from Bandar Abbas to Jask explode, commands destroy depots, chain react massive explosions during the day, barracks collapse, towers fall. The operative capacity of the Iranian Navy in the Strait extinguished in 4 minutes. A shock for Tehran, whose hatred now turns into panic. Dear listeners, what do you think? If you were the US commander, would you have deployed the bombers earlier to break Iran's aggression even more brutally? Or do you wait for the perfect moment of humiliation? Share your tactical ideas. I'm curious. The most devastating response comes at 3:08 p.m. 3 U.S. submarines, USS Toledo, USS Helena, USS Alexandria, Virginia, class surface dramatically visible in the blue water. They have tracked Iranian ships for weeks, invisible waiting. Now they fire Tomahawks from vertical tubes, bright launches in the sunshine. Target naval headquarters in Bandar Abbas. At 3:12 p.m., the building that coordinated the attack disappears in massive explosions, a smoke cloud visible for 60 kilometers. The admiral who gave the hate order dead. His staff wiped out. The building in ruins. At 3:15 p.m. 16, more FA-18S arrive from the Eisenhower +4 EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare visible in the sky. Growlers jam every Iranian radar within 200 kilometers, defenses blind. The F/A-18S destroy systematically patrol boats in the harbor with precision bombs, explosions, satellite documented. Warehouses, obliterated shipyards, devastated fuel depots, and fireballs visible 50 kilometers away. By 3:25 p.m., the Revolutionary Guard fleet is functionally destroyed. 12 boats sunk, 3 corvettes destroyed, 6 batteries eliminated, headquarters obliterated, 57 facilities in flames, a total humiliation for Iran's military, which boasted of being invincible. The outcome, the Mason damaged but surviving. Iran's fleet in the Strait wiped out in 47 minutes. The carrier group didn't even have to get close. The FA-18S handled everything. If America had to open the Strait permanently, Iran's navy could do nothing against it, a slap in the face for the mullahs. The Emirates strengthen cooperation with the U.S. Fifth Fleet. Bahrain expands base access. Saudi Arabia requests air defense training, but sensationally, oil prices remain stable. Markets know America keeps the Strait open. Iran's threats are empty. The lesson for Tehran: attacking U.S. ships does not close the Strait, but destroys your fleet. The world sees it in broad daylight. Summary: 2:52 p.m. Hormuz, perfect visibility. Iran launches a massive attack, 38 missiles, 12 boats, 3 corvettes, 6 batteries, coordinated ambush visible in the light. They wanted to sink the destroyer, hijack the tanker, close the strait, drive America out. At 3:39 p.m., 47 minutes later, 15 ships destroyed, 6 batteries gone, headquarters obliterated, 57 facilities burned, 320 dead. Everything visible, documented, undeniable. Total U.S. victory. Mason fights on tanker through Marines extracted with secret data. Iran wanted to close, instead they opened themselves to destruction. That happens when you attack U.S. ships. Operation Iron Pass, 47 minutes, 1 afternoon, catastrophic Iranian defeat, total U.S. victory. The strait remains open, U.S. Navy dominant, Iran humiliated. Never attack U.S. ships. The Fifth Fleet watches and strikes in the daylight. Dear listeners, what do you think of this? As an Iranian commander, would you surrender after such a humiliation or continue to fuel the hatred? And for the US side, was the response appropriate, or would you have struck even harder? Share your opinions, let's discuss. This was Air Superiority with the most complete analysis of world-changing military operations. Subscribe for more exclusive content about military superiority and battles. Because here, the military truth comes to light.